The Detroit Lions now, this probably was their best shot to win the Super Bowl under Dan Campbell, because now you lose your two coordinators, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, who are going to get head coaching jobs this offseason, and you're going to have a hard time finding suitable replacements for both of them. With the injuries that the Lions sustained this season, it was going to be hard for them to make it back this far as what they did last year. But this was their best shot, because the NFC this season is not as good what it's about to be next season. For Dan Campbell to be able to hire two great assistants and you're asking him to do it again is something that's really hard to repeat. And who's to tell if the Lions are ever going to get good enough quarterback play out of Jared Goff in the foreseeable future? Jared Goff showed everybody why he got traded from the Los Angeles Rams for Matthew Stafford in the first place in this loss, because Matthew Stafford always comes through in the playoffs. You saw what Matthew Stafford did in the fourth quarter against the Philadelphia Eagles. At one point, you thought that game was out of reach, and Matthew Stafford put on a masterclass performance in the snow. Who would have ever thought that the Los Angeles Rams, a team from Cali that you would think being in, hotter weather during this time of the year, would be able to have the game offensively that they did in the cold weather on the road in Philadelphia? Matthew Stafford was fantastic. He was sensational against the best defense in the NFL. The Philadelphia Eagles were scared of Matthew Stafford in that game. They had no answer for him. There is no other team in the NFL that has been able to put on the clinic that the Los Angeles Rams and Matthew Stafford did against such a great defense. That being Vic Fangio's defense with Philadelphia. The Detroit Lions this season, with all of the injuries that they suffered, it really derailed how far they truly could have went. Jared Goff, in some of the biggest games that the Lions have played in this year, even when they've won, some of them they've won in spite of Jared Goff. Remember when he had a bunch of turnovers against the Houston Texans? Jared Goff just isn't one of those quarterbacks that you can trust in the postseason. He has a ceiling, and he reached that ceiling under Sean McVay. In Matthew Stafford's first season with the Rams, he won the Super Bowl. The first season after replacing Jared Goff. And that's the thing. Jared Goff is good for Detroit, because Detroit, they're just glad to finally be having success. The Los Angeles Rams, though, they had their taste of almost winning the Super Bowl. And they felt like after they lost and came up so short that Jared Goff was part of the problem for why they couldn't get it done. And as soon as they replaced him for Matthew Stafford, they end up winning a Super Bowl in year one. And now you look at the Detroit Lions, the last 2 years, they've been unable to get over the hump to get to a Super Bowl when they've looked like the best team in the NFC on 2 straight occasions. And now when you lose so many good coordinators, it's just hard to ask Dan Campbell to be able to land 2 more slam dunk hires. It's incredibly difficult when you have a CEO-style head coach to always consistently nail his coordinator hires. I do not see the Detroit Lions ever being able to make it to a Super Bowl with this loss to the Commanders as long as Dan Campbell is the head coach. I'm not saying that he's going to be bad, but what I'm saying is that it's just so tough to get to this spot where you had the best season in the history of your franchise. You had the number 1 seed. You had a first-round bye, and yet you still managed to blow it. You may not ever be able to replicate the kind of season that you had ever again in the foreseeable future, making your road to the Super Bowl more difficult than what you had this season. This is as easy as what it gets for Detroit. With the way Jaden Daniels looks and all the money that they're going to have in cap space during this offseason to improve this team, the Washington Commanders are probably going to be a powerhouse for the next 3-5 years as long as Jaden Daniels is on a rookie deal. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to be better. Who knows what the Chicago Bears are going to look now that they just hired Ben Johnson. I just don't see the Detroit Lions ever being able to win a Super Bowl with Dan Campbell as their head coach. Their Super Bowl window has closed with this loss to the Washington Commanders because this is the best season that you ever had. It's going to be hard to hire two good coordinators, and it's going to be hard to have a 15-win kind of season like this ever again, especially with how difficult it is to win in this